Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to 360 Coaching with Premier Approaches to Teaching and Learning. Today, I have with me Melanie. Yay! I am super excited. She's from Literacy at Work, and I love everything about her. Today, she's going to be introducing principles of adult learning, what you need to know and understand about how adults learn, which is so important. So welcome, Melanie.
Well, thank you, Cassandra. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am celebrating my 24th year in education, and I have experienced education from many different perspectives, which is what I wanted to do when I first became a teacher. So I did teach like first, second, sixth, and seventh grades for the first 9 years of my career before I went into coaching. And so I've been coaching for about 14 years, and I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to coach not just locally, but regionally and nationally as well. So, needless to say, I do love what I do. And I've been in this thing, and sometimes I get angry with education, but something keeps pulling me back. And so, so I am here. My grade spans pre-K through 12th grade. So, it's just been a wonderful journey. I had a light bulb moment not too long ago, like, wow, 24 years? I'm pushing 30. It has gone by so quickly. Wow. But I love it though.
No, that's so amazing. I think if anybody's watching this, you have to follow her Instagram. It is really great tips, great feedback, and just great ways to get better at being a coach. So if you are definitely on here, make sure you follow her on Instagram. But other than that, tell us what you want us to share today for our instructional leaders and coaches.
So when I first became a literacy coach back in 2006, I did not realize the amount of professional development that I would have to provide. I knew that I would be observing teachers, and I knew that I would be providing feedback and working with them closely, co-teaching, co-planning, modeling, all of those things. But I didn't know the amount of professional development I would have to provide. And so it's so important, if you want to keep your adults, your audience engaged in what you're doing, you have to abide by these principles of adult learning in order for your training or workshop or PD to go smoothly, and for them to feel like they've been heard and listened to, and so that they can take what you taught them and apply it immediately in their situation. Why do you need to know about adult learning principles? We need to know about them so that we can design our trainings, or you can design your trainings around how adults learn best. So adults need to know why they need to learn something before they learn it. They have to know the purpose. They need to know the why. Why is it that I need this? Why is it that I have to learn this? Is it applicable to what I'm going to do tomorrow? So they need to know what they're going to learn before they learn it. They need to know how the learning will be conducted. That's also important. Is it going to be face-to-face? Is it going to be auditorium style where I don't have a chance to interact with anyone? Is it going to be the tables are going to, we're working in tables together so that I can chat with my colleagues? They need to know what learning will occur. So what are they going to learn about? Is it something to do with compliance, or is it something to do with instruction? And they need to know why the learning is important. So you're telling me I need to learn this, but why? Why is it important? Why do I need to know it? So this is why you have to implement adult learning practices, because it'll make them more engaged and to make them more feel a part of your learning experience. So here we go. Let's get right into it. We have 5 principles, and this is principle number 1. So principle number 1 is that you want to incorporate adults' prior learning and experience. You want to be cognizant of that, and you want to be respectful about what they already know before they come into your learning environment. It's important to recognize and acknowledge the prior experiences of adults and incorporate that into your training.
Oh my gosh. I
know, right?
I love this because, it just reminds me at the beginning of the year, many times I would walk classrooms and look on the shelves to kind of see what they're reading, what binder they have on their shelf, just so I can get a grasp of what they learned in the professional development. So this is great. Keep going.
And the hook, because that hook, that's a way to encourage a conversation with them. Oh, I see that you're reading A, B, and C. I read that book. My favorite part was, so that's a way to hook them in. So here are some strategies to help you with principle number one. If you don't do this, you need to do this, and I do this with just about everything I do. Conduct a needs assessment to uncover group members' experiences and expectations. What have you experienced before, especially if you already know the topic? What have you already experienced before in terms of this topic, and what are your expectations? You also want to ask participants to share relevant experiences throughout the training session. So I'm this brain-based learning person, and one of the things that always draw the attention of your participants is storytelling. So if you can tell a story that's relevant to them and their experiences, you're going to draw them in, and it's going to make them want to learn.
Yes.
Another thing is that you have to create peer sharing opportunities by facilitating small group discussions. So we like to talk. We like to talk and we like to share, because I want to know what you're doing. How did you do that? And so we have to develop those experiences within our learning environment. And although this may sound, oh, we use this in the classroom, but use it with adults and see how much you will learn about this. Do a KWL with them on the flip chart. You know, of course, the K is what they know, the W is what they want to know, and the L at the end is what they've learned about the learning experience. And this serves as a good reflection to them, because sometimes, and I think we're all guilty, we can come into a learning opportunity and think, well, I already know about this, so what more do they have to tell me about this? You know, so at the end, if you implement a KWL, then I'm pretty sure they would have learned something new. And that's what I try to do. I try to put little twists to it, because you have to have them walk away with new learning for them to feel like they haven't wasted their time.
No,
so,
I agree. I love this, because, you know, it also reminds me of, like, this is true engagement at its best, is getting them to talk about, open with a story. So yes, keep going.
And designing it with them in mind, because I mean, I'm an adult. How many times have I sat in a room where it was 100% lecture, and I was just like, you know what, I should have brought that book that I was going to read. So, you know, you have to, you have to. So those are some strategies to incorporate adults' prior learning and experience. So here's principle number 2, which is to create a safe space for learners. This is my number 1 principle, because at the end of the day, I want participants to feel like they're welcome. I don't want them to feel like if they raise their hand, it's a wrong answer, they're asking a wrong kind of question. Make it as safe for them as possible. So adults may feel vulnerable when they're learning something new. You can support learners' comfort levels by using low-risk activities, reassurance, and a plan for building incremental successes. So just like with teaching students, you know, you don't want to start with the abstract. You don't want to start there. You have to start with the concept and move forward. So what are some strategies you can use to create a safe space for your learners? So number 1, you want to establish some ground rules, or we call them norms. I like calling them working agreements, because I come with a few, and then we review them. I review them with them, and we all agree to them, and I ask if there is anything else we should add to our working agreements so that we can have a safe community. So establish the ground rules, norms, or working agreement, whatever you want to call them. And you want to thoughtfully plan sessions to start with the basics, like I was saying, and then work towards complexity. Because if you start already and it's challenging, you've lost them. I know you've lost me. So, you know, give me something where I can, you know, pull in my prior experiences from principle number 1 and connect the dots when I start to learn. So you want to move through it from basics to complexity. You want to set practical learning objectives. You know, don't make them so out of reach that, you know, already from the beginning they are stressed out because they don't even know if they're going to be able to meet these objectives. So make sure they're practical. Affirm questions and ideas from individuals who speak up. And this is really important because, and affirmation doesn't mean you have to spiel it soliloquy or something like that. It only means thank you or I appreciate it. Just something to let them know that they've been heard, because sometimes it's hard for individuals to speak up. And that's why you have to create this safe learning environment so that all voices can be heard. And again, allow for small group interaction. Allow people to talk together, because that's when they process ideas. That's when they can bounce off one another and get new ideas. So allow for small group instruction. So you want to do those. Those are some strategies that you can use to create a safe space for learners.
This is great, because I'm thinking like, I remember a couple lessons I played music to kind of lower the affective field. We are family.
That's right.
And like you were saying, to mark instruction, like when somebody says something great, I would throw them a piece of candy, just something little. So these strategies, oh my God, I love them.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to use them. I think sometimes we get so caught up in this box and we want to make sure everything is just right and goes perfectly, and they have to know this kind of information and we have to teach it this kind of way. Scrap all of that. We have the content that we need to teach. How can we teach it in a way that's going to be fun and it's going to be memorable? Because that's what you want. You want the learning to stick. And so you have to be able to engage your audience, and you have to create a safe space for them to work. Principle number 3, respect participants as individuals. You know adults, that we want to be respected. Bottom line, if we want our opinions to be respected, we want to be respected personally. So we have to keep that in mind when we're teaching adult learners. So establish sound relationships with participants, model and encourage respect and open communication, and provide for their needs with adequate breaks and use of their time effectively. Use of their time effectively. Because, I don't like to sit someplace and I feel like, why am I here? Just keep in mind that this is their time too, whether they had to be there mandatorily or if it was voluntary. This is still their time. So what can we do? What are some strategies we can use to respect participants as individuals? Well, after presenting the agenda, check in with your audience to make sure they understand what it is that they are going to learn for the day. I almost kind of get agreement on the agenda, so to speak, like I do the working agreements. I will ask, is there anything on here that you don't understand, or should I go further into something? And if it's something that I know that is coming up on the agenda, we're going to get to that point in a few minutes. And so you just check in with your audience with the agenda, provide adequate breaks. Now, depending on the circumstance, I know sometimes if your award or credits, continuing education credits are being awarded, then you have to be in the room for a certain amount of time before you give a break. Breaks are mandatory. Sometimes participants, as well as the presenter, want to leave a little early. And you know what, it might be okay, but have established that. Yeah. If we forego this 10-minute break and we can leave 10 minutes early, is that okay with you? So you want to make sure you establish that before you take away their breaks. So provide adequate breaks throughout your training. Think about the length of time of your training and then schedule out breaks from there. You want to offer choices and allow for self-direction. So if you're really good at creating activities in your workshops, you can create them so that it seems like they're making choices, but it's really, what do you call it, structured choices. You set these up for them. And so just allow them to make choices within the choices that you provide, and for them to be able to be self-directed and give them, because teachers like to, or adult learners like to explore different things in different ways. Just give them that opportunity. Design it into your workshop. Be flexible and adapt to your participant needs. Like I was saying with bullet number 2, if they need that break, then let them have the break. But if they don't need the break, then, hey, let's keep rolling and we can get out of here early. So just be flexible. And that takes a skill as a presenter to be able to read your audience and know when to switch gears, because all the time, your plans, those beautiful PowerPoint presentations you've made and those wonderful handouts, and you made crossword puzzles and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes, you have to read your audience and know when to switch it up. No, okay, I'm going to pause this right here and pick it back up. Let me switch and do this little activity. Even if it's like a brain break, so to speak, do that just to get them reacquainted with the learning. So you have to be flexible and adapt to participants' needs. You want to conduct frequent check-ins, asking for feedback about the training, the content process. So, just as with when you're teaching students, you want to give a thumbs up, or how does that look, or how does that feel? What are your thoughts on that? Just some quick check-ins. It doesn't have to be anything long that will extend the amount of time of your presentation, but so that you can know if you're on the right track, or you can adjust to meet their needs more. And learn about different adult learning styles and teach to all of the styles. And in a couple of slides, I'm going to get to that. Learn about their learning styles. Presenting is a complex thing. It's more than just getting up and talking. It really is an art. And if you can do it very well, they will never know the techniques that you slide past them. So, we're going to get to those adult learning styles in a minute. So principle number 4, include structured activities in your training, like I said a couple of minutes ago. So include those structured activities. There are 3 aspects involved in learning: the ideas, which is the cognitive part; feelings, which is the affective; and actions, which is the behavioral part. Adults learn best training moves beyond ideas and feelings to incorporate actions as well. So you have to go beyond directions, you have to go beyond the feelings, and you have to incorporate that action, and you have to get them moving too, which is a learning style I'm going to get to in a minute. But you have to do that as well. So what are some strategies to help support including structured activities in your training? Here are some strategies. Oh, look at that word. You have to chunk the learning. So after every 10 minutes of learning, give participants 2 minutes to discuss the concepts you present.
I love it.
Again, I don't know about you, but I don't like to be sitting. I don't like to be sitting, listening to you talk. So chunk the learning: 10 minutes of learning, 2 minutes of discussion, 2 minutes of reflection, 2 minutes of writing, something of that sort to make sure the learning sticks. You want to ask guided questions and facilitate discussions, because we love to talk and we love to share, and we want to hear what other people have to say to see if it aligns or if it doesn't align to how we act, feel, and do. So you want to do that. Here's what I did to incorporate guided questions. I used Poll Everywhere, which is the online polling system, and now the big one is Mentimeter, M-I-N-T-I. Use those, because I put all of my devices on the floor. We have phones and tablets and all of those types of things. Why not incorporate that into learning? That's our norm. So ask guided questions through one of those online polling platforms. Facilitate an activity that allows participants to practice the skills or techniques you're teaching. So when you teach it, have them to practice it and then have them to teach it. If you're familiar with Dale's comb of pardon me, I never remember the whole names, but it's the pyramid that shows where you retain the most information. So the top 10% is lecture, and then the reading is like 20% of retention. But at the bottom of the pyramid, you retain more when you teach others.
Yes.
So if you can teach somebody something, then you know that concept. So facilitate those activities that you know that they can practice the skills. I love using case studies and videos or stories, like I said earlier, especially case studies, because if you present a case study, then it allows the participants to dissect what's there and put it back together in a new way. So use those and invite your learners to describe, analyze, apply, or implement what they've learned. So after they've done all of this manipulating of a case study, bring them back together and have them talk through what they did, analyze how they did it, and share their results. So that's another way. And play a game that slowly presents new information and allows participants to interact with new information. Those are some strategies that you can use to include structured activities within the learning environment.
This is great because it reminds me of what we would call accordion activities. And
yes,
all these activities, they extend the learning, extend the time, gets teachers to kind of grapple with new ideas, but you are spot on it.
Yes, thank you. Because I mean, you learn from experience. You know, like I said, I was kind of thrust into it. I had a tool here or there in my belt. Wasn't a complete tool belt. And so along the way, I had to just kind of gather this information and learn it and apply it. Don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to try something new. If it fails, oh well, keep it moving. It's not the end of the world. Trust and believe it is not the end of the world. Get back up, do it again. So, and I know we're working with adults, and sometimes adults can be a little rough, but it's not the end of the world. And especially if they know the why. Like I said before, if they know the, well, you know, I wanted to do this, but because of this, they just need to be informed, and they'll be okay.
Yep.
Principle number 5, consider learning styles, and here we go with the learning styles. So like students, you have to appeal to adults' visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning styles. Again, depending on your style, you may be able to sit down and take more of a lecture type of learning versus, you know, being able to listen to a little and then just being totally disengaged. The secret is to make sure that whatever you're developing to include these learning styles throughout your presentation. That way you'll know that your audience, you're delivering, and your audience will be able to remember what you're presenting because you have craftfully and carefully designed your presentation to include these learning styles. So here we go with visual learners. You know you want to show videos and movie clips. You want to do that. If you're showing videos and movie clips, I do recommend some kind of viewing guide or an anticipation guide. I like using those best. If you don't know, an anticipation guide is it's a handout that you create, and it has statements or questions, and you either circle true or false before you look at the movie. After you look at the movie, you confirm your answers, true or false. But the important thing is that it gets the audience to pay attention to your movie clip. That's what you want them to do. So they pre-read all of these questions or statements, and then they go back. And while they're looking at the video or the movie clip, they are tuned in to hear what their answers are. So you can do that. You can also show and explain diagrams and ask them to draw pictures, because doodling, drawing pictures, is one of the 20 brain-based learning strategies. So if you're presenting and someone is drawing, it doesn't mean they're not paying attention to you. It means that they are really concentrating and learning what you're saying, and they're committing it to memory in that type of way. You can also provide extra material to read after the training. Sorry about the typo, but you can do that after the training. So that's how you can satisfy your visual learners. For your auditory learners, play a song to illustrate a point, or play background music when appropriate, and have breakout groups to discuss the content and hear the perspectives of others. You know what? I'm so sorry.
It's
okay. So anyway, you know, it happens. I should have prefaced by putting a spell check at the beginning of this presentation. So what I love to do is use music. Whenever you enter a learning environment of mine, music will be playing. When we're on breaks, music will be playing. I use it as an energizer to get it, especially if it's a long one-day workshop. After lunch, the music will be playing. So use music where appropriate. Those breakout groups where they're discussing the content, I love those, because I love being a part of those, because you pick up on different perspectives. And so, you know, I may have thought, you know, that this was really good this way, but when somebody else explained it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So you want to make sure your auditory learners have those kinds of things built into your presentation so that it's conducive to them. Your kinesthetic learners use creative activities that get people out of their chairs and doing something interesting. And you can put out the Play-Doh, pipe cleaners, the squeeze, stretched balls on tables, because we need to move. That's me. I need to do something. I'm paying attention. I am. If you ask me a question, I can answer it, but I need to do something. I love getting up and moving around. I love getting up and saying, you know, like if you do the 4 seasons activity, I love meeting my new seasonal partner. I don't know what it is, but I love it. But these are some ways when you're talking about learning styles of the participants. Make sure you include things that are visually appealing, that are appealing for them to listen to, and for them to get up, move. Even if they don't get up and move, have something at the table for them to fidget with so that they can keep engaged in your presentation.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny because I have all these activities and things that I've always planned, but I remember we had a teacher who had a hard of hearing. So I would always, you know, remember to put on Google and caption so everything I say would come pre-printed. So these are great strategies that I kind of use to make sure I was meeting the needs of all learners, like you said.
Yeah, and don't feel bad if you are presenting before an audience that you don't know and you know you didn't make that accommodation. It's okay because you didn't know. But if you know your audience, like if you're working with amongst your peers or wherever you're working, you know, when you know those things, you can make those accommodations and make that learning experience so much more rich for those participants.
Yeah.
So I just want you to remember to incorporate adults' prior learning experiences. I want you to create a safe space, a safe learning environment for them where they feel like they can be open to ask anything and share anything. You want to respect participants as individuals. You want to include structured activities in your training so that you can make sure that they are learning and practicing what you've taught, and you want to consider their learning styles as well. So that is it for this. I thank you so much. Hope I didn't talk too quickly. I try to slow myself down.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. I appreciate you. And, you know, like I said, you can follow her on Instagram, but I will definitely give you all of her contact info. Thank you very much, Melanie.
You are so welcome, Cassandra.
You're amazing.
I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, lady.